Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this presentation on European society in the age of the Renaissance, Part 2. I am Miss Jennifer Blank, and I will be your guide on this journey. Today, we are going to talk about the intellectual Renaissance. All right, now let's just go over humanism really quick, make sure we're all on the same page. Faith is good. Church is bad. Human ability and achievement is good. Individualism and secularism are also good. All right, individualism, focus on the unique traits and contributions of each person. And secularism, I don't know why I can't say that word, is the process of becoming more concerned with material or physical world and less with the spiritual or religious world. It's not that we're not concerned with that. It's just we're less concerned with it than we used to be, and more concerned with the physical world than we used to be. All right, so about the church, super quick. The papacy, not good times. So you have Leo X and Pope Julius II. Leo X in particular was a train wreck of a pope. He was a bad boy. He was good for artists because he patronized them and really bankrupted the Vatican treasury, paying for them to do stuff. But he was really bad for the church. Nobody liked Pope Leo. He really didn't do very good things. During both of these popes' terms in office, I guess you could say, they lost influence over European nation states. There was a significant decline in moral prestige and leadership, and this thing called nepotism was used to promote family interests. This nepotism is where you hire people based on what family they're a part of, or based on the fact that you know them or you're friends with them, and not because they're good for the job. So people don't like that. They want you to be hired based on merit, not based on nepotism. So this was part of the problem. All right, let's talk about the printing press, because I love me some printing press. So these 5 things were made possible because of the printing press. So we have communal knowledge as possible, okay? Page numbering and indices, indexes. I love indexes. Who doesn't love indexes? Reading moves from a communal to a private activity. So you have this ability to kind of break down and analyze and synthesize important works on your own, in private, individual. It's good times. Authorship becomes more important because now that your work can circulate all over Europe, you want everyone to know that it was yours. So it becomes very important to know who wrote stuff. Early copyright and intellectual property laws are established. We have the decline of Latin and the move towards vernacular. All right, and vernacular is language of the common people. Okay, so that means in Germany, people could read stuff in German, not just in Latin. And in France, people could read stuff in French. This helped add to the growing nationalist movement that was happening and helped to centralize political authority. It's very important. All right. There's Johannes Gutenberg, the man himself. There was an explosion of printed materials. And just to give you some stats, by 1500, over 40,000 titles were printed and between 8 to 10 million copies were circulated. That's like less than 50 years, man. 50 years, and that's how much has been printed. That's really incredible when you think about where human society was, European society was in the Middle Ages. Very impressive. All right, emergence of the intellectual Renaissance happens with Petrarch. He is the father of humanism. I want everyone to memorize that. Petrarch, father of humanism. Who was the father of humanism? It was Petrarch. And if you ever wondered where we got the term the Dark Ages, we got it from Petrarch, who was the father of humanism. All right, he established the emphasis on classical Latin, and he rediscovered lost manuscripts, which as a historian, I got to tip my hat to this guy because that's good times for me. I wouldn't be a historian, there wouldn't be historians if it wasn't for this guy, so that's exciting. Florence was very key. When you're thinking Renaissance in Italy, you're thinking Florence. Now, we know there are 2 types of humanism. There is Christian and secular. Now we have the 3rd type, civic humanism. All right, and this idea meant that you needed to live an active life serving the state. It was your duty to do so. So that's very important. Okay, let's talk about philosophy. I love philosophy. Who doesn't love philosophy, right? So we remember that the intellectual mode of thought in the Middle Ages was scholasticism, and that was based on Aristotle. Now we're shifting gears. We're going back to Plato, which is good times. The Florentine Platonic Academy was very important in disseminating Plato's ideas. 2 really important humanists were Marsilio Ficino and Mirandola. All right, these guys were really important. Mirandola wrote this work called The Oration on the Dignity of Man. It's It's very, very important. You should check that out. My guys, we're going to read it, but if you're not in my class, you should Google it and you should read it yourself because it's good times. Now, Ficino not only translated Platonic dialogues and made them accessible to people who lived in the time that he did, he also is credited with synthesizing Christianity and Platonism into a single system. Now, you notice I say here, not really, don't worry, I'll explain. Well, here's my problem with this. The books make it sound like Ficino did it like all by himself, like it was all Ficino and he didn't have any help. Listen, the synthesizing of Christianity and Platonism into a single system was started in like the first 100 years of Christianity, like roughly around 100, 150 AD. All right, that's when it was started. All right, so you know, Ficino's important. I love Ficino. Don't get me wrong. I love him, but he's not the only guy who participated in this. However, if the AP exam asks you who synthesized Christianity and Platonism, what are you going to say? Oh, yes, that's right. You're going to say Ficino because that's what the AP exam wants to hear. But on the right-hand side, you see this page. It's an excerpt from a book. This is going to tell you a little bit about that synthesis, and it's also going to tell you about this thing called Hermeticism. So I want you to pause the video and take a look at that. Okay, review. Emphasis on Greco-Roman curriculum, right? Emphasis on Greco-Roman authors. And then pops up this question, to educate women or not to educate women? That is the question. Well, obviously women were like, heck yes, educate women. We are on board. But then, you know, Europe is still a patriarchy, so you've got plenty of male humanists that are like, heck no, do not educate women. They belong in the kitchen kind of attitude. They didn't put it precisely like that, but that was the attitude. To be honest, male humanists were split on this. You had a lot of male humanists saying absolutely not, but then you had a lot of male humanists who were like, hey, wait, hold on a second. Women might have some stuff to add. I've been reading some stuff by these women and it's pretty good. Maybe we should take a look. So humanists were split on that question. All right, humanistic age. We have our 3 types of humanism. I love this great fervor displayed in finding and collecting old documents. You know, you want to know what history smells like? Just open a wonderful old book and just stick your face in it. That's what history smells like. It's good times. But this collecting it led to critical examination of these documents. The quintessential historical questions: how, why, who, what, where, cause and effect. And Lorenzo Valla contributed a lot to that, so that's important. It also made people feel good about being alive, about being human. So it produces this moral uplift, which is very exciting. It's good times. All right. So we have some extreme vanity of religious scholars. They really thought who the heck they were, thought they were God's gift to humanity. There was a big importance of law and rhetoric in Renaissance education. Obviously, the cultivation of classical political ideals, but also that knowledge needed to be useful. All right, it needed to serve a purpose. All right, let's talk about Petrarch, because Petrarch, I love me some Petrarch. We love Petrarch. So he assembled Greek and Roman writings, and he also wrote Sonnets to Laura, which was published in the vernacular. Good times. All right, he influenced William Shakespeare quite a bit. I'll talk about Shakespeare in the next video lesson. Let's talk about Erasmus real quick. He's an example of a Christian humanist. I'm going to talk about him a little bit more in the next video lesson also. He pushed for a vernacular form of the Bible long before Martin Luther did. Here's a quote from him about that. You can go ahead and pause the video and read that on your own. I love that last line, as if the strength of the Christian religion consisted in the ignorance of it. That's just a great line. He actually wanted to reform the Catholic Church, and he wrote this work called The Praise of Folly, and that little blurb right there describes that work, so you can go ahead and pause the video and read that on your own. Let's talk about England. There was a decline, in population. There was, but it wasn't as significant as some other places. The Tudors. Let's pause and talk about the Tudors because they're great. So you have Henry VII, right? Let me get all these bullets up here so you can kind of see what's happening. So Tudors restored the royal prestige and crushed the power of nobility, and they established this local order. After there was a civil war between the nobles to determine who would be king, who would be the ruling family. All the Tudors, except for Henry VIII, stayed away from expensive wars, which was a good idea. Henry VIII, of course, well, we'll talk about him in a second because he wasn't the best king we've ever seen. The royal council was filled with common lawyers, not nobles, which also weakened, that helped crush the power of nobility. This royal council was called the Star Chamber. You'll probably be asked about that in the AP exam. Now, when Henry VII dies in 1509, England England is in great shape. Okay, it's in great shape. It's at peace. It's got tons of wealth from trade, and the royals are well respected. The nobles are in their place. Everybody's happy. And then Henry VIII comes into power. He wasn't supposed to be king. His older brother Arthur was, but his older brother Arthur died. So then Henry now becomes the heir apparent. Now, Henry was a playboy, and he loved the ladies. He had 6 different wives. Okay, I don't know if you guys know that. Most of you probably do, but those of you who don't, 6 different wives, right? So he had 3 different children by all these wives. His first 2 children were women, so were girls. So he was not happy with that. And then finally he gets himself a son, Edward VI. Edward VI wouldn't rule for very long. He died early on, and then he was followed on the throne by his sister Mary, followed by Elizabeth. Now, to be honest, Henry VIII, Mary, and Edward were train wrecks. Elizabeth I was the bomb. She was truly awesome, because during Henry VIII's reign, Edward's reign, and Mary's reign, England was going through an identity crisis. It couldn't decide if it was Catholic or Protestant. All right, and this was a major destabilizing factor for England. Under Henry VIII, it was Catholic, and then he wanted divorce. Pope wouldn't give it to him, so he said, fine, forget you, Pope. I'll just separate from the church and make my own dang church. And then they become Protestant. Edward VI takes them even more Protestant. Then he dies. Mary comes in, and she takes him back uber Catholic, super Catholic. So England didn't know what to do with itself. Then Elizabeth comes in, and she creates this nice middle way, this via media, and says, you know what, we're going to be Protestant, but Catholics can still worship without fear of like getting burned at the stake. So she really settles England down, but there was a lot of problems in England during the Tudor dynasty. All right, let's talk about trade routes super quick. You can take a look at this map. You can see the diffusion of Italian Renaissance ideas throughout the rest of Europe. You can pause the video and examine that map on your own. All right, let's talk about the French. The French, bless their hearts. So it was most obvious in architecture in some of the paintings. That picture is a classic example. It's awesome. So the Chateau de Chambord was built during the French Renaissance. Use of columns and domes was very Greek. Good times. So the Black Death, the 100 Years' War, really messed up France. Now Charles VII comes in, he revives the monarchy, kicked out the English, strengthened finances. Good times. But the most important thing that France did during this era is yet to come. Now Charles VII also created the first permanent royal army, but here we go. This is important. Concordat of Bologna. Francis I and Pope Leo X agreed to allow French kings to appoint bishops and set church policies. Score for France. Lost points for the church. Let's talk about Germany super quick. Germany is going to come more into play once we get into the Protestant Reformation, but suffice to say they were combining Renaissance realism with German religious feeling. Very Christian humanist up in here. Okay, very, very much Christian humanism over here. Let's talk about Spain. Spain. Good times in Spain. So again, scholarship and architecture. This palace was built by Philip II in the late 1500s. Philip II is going to be very, very important, and I'm going to tell you why right now. All right, so Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon, they unite the royal houses. There were 2 parts of Spain, Castile and Aragon. These 2 get married, unite the houses, but the 2 peoples are not united just yet. That actually comes with Philip II in the 1580s, but I'll get to that. So, in this marriage, they weaken the power of the aristocracy, and these people are excluded from the royal council. Out with you. They are no longer important. It weakens their power. This allows centralization of political authority. Very important. They secured the power to appoint bishops. Again, score for Spain, lost points for the church. But here's the problem with Spain, and I don't like this very much. It's not good times. 40% of Jews were killed or forced to convert. This is not good times. The Spanish were never very nice to the Jews. This was awful. And on the next slide, I'm going to talk about the Inquisition real quick. So, Inquisition. The Jews they didn't kill, they expelled. So, Spain, not Jewish friendly. Okay, it's sad to say that it was not good times for the Jews up in Spain. All right, the Habsburg dynasty continues with Charles V and Philip II. Charles V actually inherits the Netherlands and the Holy Roman Empire. So now you see how the maps of Europe get all messed up and why everything's so confusing, because different monarchs control different things and it's all very confusing. We'll look at a map in class. Philip II unites Spain in 1580. Yes, he completed the process that Isabella and Ferdinand had started. That's excellent. So, that's it for now. I will see you in part 3. I hope you learned what you needed to, and I will see you next time.